What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. How are we all doing today? This is going to be the end of the year summary for me. I'm going to start doing this now more often. I used to do these a lot more like a couple of years ago, but then I just stopped doing it because I took a big break from content creation in 2022 and 2023, and now we're kind of back doing this again a little bit more regularly, so I thought I would go ahead and talk about some of the games that I played this year that I thought were really, really cool. Now, not all of the games that you see from this video are going to be from 2025. Most of them will be, but, you know, there are some really cool games that we played this year on this channel that definitely deserve an honorable mention that were not from this year. So I just want to just preface that. But 2025 was an incredible year for gaming. If anything goes to show by the Game Awards this year, there was a lot of incredible stuff that came out. Now, the Game Awards, you know, it kind of was almost a meme this year because of how obvious the winner of Game of the Year was from the very get-go. But it was a pretty incredible year for gaming. It was just like one of those things that, you know, you look back at things and you go, geez, this year was just incredible. It really was. So the first game of the year that I played was Avowed. Avowed was a game by Obsidian Entertainment, and Avowed was an incredible experience. I was very excited for this game already when it was announced way back in the day. It was basically Obsidian's take on the Elder Scrolls franchise, and it definitely felt like that. A lot of Skyrim devs worked on Avowed, and it was just a really, really great game. You could just tell the attention to detail was great. It takes place in the Pillars of Eternity universe, but it's its own standalone game, so you didn't have to know anything about the Pillars of Eternity world. And it was just an incredibly well done. Like, you know, I went personally as a mage, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, and a sword and shield guy or something like that. I don't remember actually what I went through. I should probably go back and look. But, you know, it was probably one of the top games of the year for me. I had a lot of fun, and now there was some people who thought that it was a little bit boring, and, you know, I can understand why some people would think that it's a little bit slow and all that stuff, but it just goes to show you that, you know, Obsidian can really create an incredible universe, and Avowed is no exception to that. I thought the map was great. I think that they could still do a little more with it. I'm really hoping that we get some DLC for it this year, or maybe something else, just so we can get there. But it's got some really famous actors in it. You know, the guy who plays Garrus is one of the main characters that you can play as a companion. And then, you know, you have Ikora from Destiny 2, her new voice actress that got recast a couple of years ago. She is also in this game, also as a companion. And then you have Savathun from Destiny 2 as a voice actress, as well as the villain and an antagonist for Avowed. I mean, it's just fantastic. You got a lot of great characters and a fantastic cast in this one. So I strongly recommend Avowed to anybody who likes, you know, high fantasy RPG games. You know, they're really, really fun. Really good job with this one. Definitely one of my top of the year. Now, the second game we played this year was was one of the more controversial topics of the year. We played Dragon Age: The Veilguard this year as well, and, you know, I gotta hand it to BioWare. They've had a very tough 5 years. You know, it's been kind of sad to see the state that BioWare has gone into, because, you know, they used to be the pinnacle RPG story narrative open worlds like dev for a long time. They had Mass Effect and they had Dragon Age, of course, but, you know, Mass Effect created such a standard for story-driven narrative games, and then, I don't know, I just feel like the team has changed so much that they're trying to keep it going, but you know, it's just such a different vibe from what it used to be, and Dragon Age the Veilguard definitely felt that way. I felt like Dragon Age the Veilguard could have done a lot of things differently. Now, I personally had a lot of fun with this game. I think that Dragon Age the Veilguard got a lot of hate for no reason. It's just one of those titles where it just confuses me that so many people chat so heavily on this game. I don't know why. I think it was a great experience. I personally had a lot of fun. There were just some things that I think definitely were not good about it, for sure. But I thought the graphics were incredible. I thought the story was okay. The dialogue, some of the dialogue was terrible. I'll say that for sure. But I don't know. I think that overall, as a regular experience, it wasn't as bad as everyone says it is. If you are interested in trying Dragon Age the Veilguard, I would strongly recommend subscribing to Game Pass for like a month and then playing it through EA Plus, because it is available as a game on Game Pass now. So feel free to go ahead and try it. You know, just subscribe for a month and then, you know, play that juggernaut of a game. It's got tons and tons of content. You have over 300 hours of content in that game. But man, you know, it sucks when BioWare gets such shit nowadays for something they've done. I mean, I think that the game was a big accomplishment for them, but just some of the things that I saw for feedback and, you know, all that stuff, it just wasn't a successful title as BioWare had hoped, I think, and that just stinks. I mean, the people who played the game and loved Dragon Age the Veilguard, like, really loved the game, but, you know, it's a very niche audience now, and who knows if there's even going to be another Dragon Age game after this. I mean, I really hope there is, but we'll have to see. All right, so then what I did was I went ahead and I played something that has been talked about for a long time, Firewatch. I had actually never played Firewatch before this year. I had always wanted to play Firewatch. I just never got around to it, and I had heard a lot of incredible things about it, and yeah, it was amazing. It was a fundamentally incredible story, incredible, you know, incredible story, incredible gameplay. I loved the indie vibes. The graphics were such a unique art style. I thought it was really, really well done. I'm not going to say too much about this game because, you know, it didn't come out this year. But, you know, if you want to go play it for yourself. I'm sure you can find a code now for like $5 somewhere. But, you know, it's a great game. I really recommend Firewatch. Then one of the most interesting, unexpected things came out this year after that. We played Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. That was a crazy release. I didn't expect Elder Scrolls 4 to get such a huge remaster. I had seen leaks about it, you know, way back in like, probably like summer of last year. And, you know, it kept saying these forums, you know, kept posting pictures of like the screenshots and being like, oh, Elder Scrolls Oblivion is going to get remastered. It's going to be released any week now and like all this stuff. And it was like, yeah, right, this can't be real. And then fucking Bethesda comes along and releases Oblivion Remastered. And we're like, what? How? When? How? When did this come out? Like, when was this in development? And it turns out it was in a huge development stage for a long time. But, you know, everyone thought that it was going to be... It's basically a remake. It should have been called a remake. I don't know why it wasn't called a remake. I think it wasn't called a remake because they used the same animations. They used the same sound effects, the same music. They just took that, put it into Unreal Engine 5... updated all of the textures and called it a day. You know, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Epic Games actually partnered with Bethesda in order to port stuff from the Creation Engine over to Epic Games and to Unreal Engine. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they made like a custom built Unreal Engine 5 for this. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. And they ported it over to Unreal Engine 5 for that reason, just so that they could get the graphical capability. which is why I'm really, really hoping that Elder Scrolls 6 is potentially in Unreal Engine 5. I don't think it is. I think it's in Creation 2, just like Starfield, but you know what? Whatever, right? It is what it is. All right, then I moved away from some of the games from that came out this year particularly, and I went more toward indie horror games, which indie horror games, it's its own category. I don't want to include any indie horror games in this particular video because this is not really that kind of video for it. Indie horror games, if you want to check them out, you can go ahead and check out my playlist. There's so many of them that we did this year, so like it doesn't make any sense for me to do a video here for this. What I might do is I might do a top tier list of all the indie horror games I played this year. I'm still thinking about that. I might do that on stream actually. But essentially it was a very interesting time switching this channel over to kind of like an indie horror scene. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it this year for sure. All right, so now let's talk about Destiny 2 really quickly. Destiny 2 did get 2 huge expansions this year. Well, not huge. They're more like medium-sized, but whatever. We played through the Edge of Fate campaign first, and that was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed the campaign part. I thought the story was very interesting. I thought that the new planet Kepler was cool. I thought it was a cool new map for it. And I do think that it was a really interesting story about the Nine and setting up the saga for the next 10 years or so, but that post-game content, man. I don't know how I feel about Destiny at its current moment. It's, you know, it's had a very rough year. Destiny 2 has been a tough time. It's been tough to be a fan of Destiny this year. I definitely don't support anything that Bungie changed for it. I think that they should have released a Destiny 3. I think that would have been a better solution. Maybe just, you know, have the Witness in the final shape be killed off, and then do the post-game content you planned for that, and then just take a year off of developing, not a year off of developing, a year off of like releasing content and just focus on a very big, brand new third game. Like, I think that would have been a much better solution. I think it would have hit the community a little bit better. I think that it would have made more of an impact, but instead they chose to do the next saga as an expansion. And it was a small expansion, and it was cool, but like, they didn't do anything after the expansion was over, and, you know, the campaign itself was like 6 hours, right? So, you know, you just go and look at it, and it's like, I don't know, man. It was like $40 too, and the Year of Prophecy, if you want to buy both, is $80. Ugh. And then, you know, it came out like last month, but you know, Renegades came out as well, and Renegades was a much better expansion. I think that it was definitely their focus for the year. I think the story for that was fantastic. I think that the Star Wars skin was actually really cool, and they did a really good job having it make sense as well. I think that that was a big win for Bungie, for sure. I think that they definitely did a great job. But, you know, realistically, we are again dealing with the same thing we did with the Edge of Fate, which is this portal system, and there's really no post-game content. They've even taken away the weekly challenges for the season pass, which used to be the only thing that was really keeping it alive, and they took it out. And so, like, it's just another situation where it's like the only people that are playing right now are the hardcore Destiny players that play this every day. And even then, those people are disappearing because there's nothing to do in the game right now. You know, all of the old content got vaulted. Not vaulted, like, officially, but, like, there's no new drops for them. They've sunset guns and armor without sunsetting them. And what I mean by that is that, you know, if you get the new stuff, that new stuff has better stats than the old stuff now. So that's basically their way of sunsetting the stuff without actually sunsetting it, right? So, like, it's starting to become a very weird experience now, and I don't really know if I like it. And I'm still trying to figure out whether I should continue playing it or not. So we'll have to take a look, see where it goes. I'm still on the fence about it. So we'll see what happens with Destiny. I don't know, but that's another one that we did this year. I think the stories and the campaigns were fantastic, but everything that comes after it was not. They need to work on that game. All right, next let's talk really quickly about Monster Hunter Wilds. So I played that with my friend Eve this year and Roxanne, and yeah, we kind of, trioed it a little bit, and we had a lot of fun with that game. I think that personally was a lot of fun, but, that game in particular got a lot of criticism, and I can understand why. Monster Hunter World was such a big game and such an incredible release that playing something like Monster Hunter Wilds that came after it was just such not a disappointment, but just not what people were expecting. Not to mention the fact that the zones that they created for Monster Hunter Wilds were like all the same. They were all desert, and there was one swamp, but it was all like, there was like a big brown filter over everything, and I don't know, there was just something about Monster Hunter Wilds this year that just didn't hit the same way as Monster Hunter World did, and I didn't even finish Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World was the first time that the series really went like to the art style and graphic style that it did, and I think that was a great move by Capcom. I think that was a really good way to bring new players into the franchise that were not already there. But to do it again and then have it be in a desert with an okay story, I mean, it was all right. The fighting, the monsters and the fighting were a lot of fun to play around with. It was hysterical to listen to my friend Roxanne just scream her head off at some of these boss fights.
I can already tell this is going to be a fucking asshole.
Realistically, it was just okay. It wasn't like great. It was just okay, I guess you could say. I still enjoyed it quite a bit, but that's only because I played it with friends. If I'd played that game by myself, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I think it would have been a bust. But yeah, I would say try it for yourself if you think that you want to. The plot of the game was pretty good, and I don't know. I just feel like it was not what everybody was hoping for, but it was what it was. All right, and then another game that came out this year that I played that was really, really special to me was Assassin's Creed Shadows. I thought that Assassin's Creed Shadows was one of the best Ubisoft games that they've put out in the last 10 years. I genuinely mean that. I think that it was incredible. I think that graphically it was insane. I think that it was crazy that there was just so much foliage and so much wildlife, and it was just so well done. Not to mention the fact that the plot itself was actually really, really good. Although I will say that I don't understand why they didn't add any of the Animus stuff to it, but that's not what people play it for anymore, really, right? Assassin's Creed Shadows takes place between two different protagonists, so you can choose between Naoe and oh my god, the other guy. What's the other guy's name? Yasuke. Oh my god, I couldn't believe I couldn't remember that name. Yeah, so Naoe and Yasuke. So if you want to be an assassin, it's a shinobi assassin, by the way. You definitely want to pick Naoe for this one. She feels like the real assassin in the Assassin's Creed game. But if you want to, you can be a charismatic samurai. I can't speak today. Charismatic samurai named Yasuke, and he is, based on a real person that actually lived. He is the first African samurai in feudal Japan. And so if you want to be a tank, you can be him, because he's a samurai, and he's basically a one-man army. I mean, it's crazy what that guy can do. No way. But at the same time, if you want to be a stealthy assassin and play like you normally do with Assassin's Creed, then Naoe is a made-up character that is based on a real person in feudal Japan. And basically you can use the shadows to kind of stealth your way through things, as opposed to, Yasuke, which is basically a tank. Ubisoft going forward should absolutely continue this two-person protagonist idea. I always thought that was great. They introduced that in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which was one of my favorite games out there. I think that Syndicate is still, to this day, one of the best. I want to just make sure that I'm getting Syndicate right. Yes, Syndicate, the one in London. Double check. There's like so many games. So I think that Syndicate was one of the best games in the Assassin's Creed franchise ever. I think that the setting was amazing, the combat was amazing, the story was amazing, the characters were amazing. Everything just came together, and I feel like Syndicate was honestly, truly the last great Assassin's Creed game in that format before they reformatted everything and did a soft reboot of the franchise with Origins, which is still to this day an incredible game, by the way. I strongly recommend it. It's just incredible for its different reasons. You know, Shadows was just an incredible experience. I really recommend it. You got so much gameplay in Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I still haven't finished all of the side quests. I did the Claws of Awaji expansion as well, and that's an amazing time. That's going to be the only expansion for Shadows, unfortunately. I really kind of wish that they did another one involving more about the actual Animus and Abstergo, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, this game was incredible, and I strongly recommend it to anybody who likes open-world RPG exploration games. It really does feel just genuinely amazing. They did an incredible job with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and you could tell that Ubisoft just... all of their money goes into Assassin's Creed. You can just tell, because it's just on another level compared to all the other games that Ubisoft released this year. Looking at you, Star Wars Outlaws. All right, anyway, so that is Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I strongly recommend that one. All right, then Spooktober came around, and we played a couple of really good Spooktober games this year. Particularly, I finally played the Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 4 remake, so now I am officially done with Resident Evil. I've played every single Resident Evil game now, including 1 and 6, unfortunately. And 5. I've played a port of 5 years and years and years ago, not on the channel, but, you know, just for myself, just to, you know what it was like. I actually really hope that they do a Resident Evil 5 remake. I think that is actually one of the games that could very much benefit from a remake. But realistically, you know, Assassin's Creed. We just talked about Assassin's Creed. Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 4 as a remake were incredible. I don't know what the original Resident Evil 3 game was like. I heard that Resident Evil 3, a lot of people didn't like it when it came out, because it was short. It was a lot of content was cut from the original game to make a release date on time. But, you know, I've never experienced Resident Evil 3's original form, so I have no idea. I have nothing to compare it to. What I experienced, I loved. I thought it was great. Resident Evil 4, I thought was a better game. I thought it was very interesting. The plot was incredible in Resident Evil 4, and I can see why people think that is the peak for the series now. I personally still think that Resident Evil 7 was the scariest game in the series, and Resident Evil 8 was my personal favorite. Just because I think it's my favorite game. I love Lady Dimitrescu. I love the medieval scene with, like, the town in the middle of nowhere in the forest with snow covering all over the ground. I don't know, just everything clicked for me in that game compared to the other ones. But Resident Evil 4 was pretty incredible. I really enjoyed that game quite a lot. And Resident Evil 3 was fun. It was short, but it was fun. I can't believe that they charged $60 for a 5-hour game. I mean, that's just kind of crazy to me. But, you know, Resident Evil 4 as a game was clearly their focus for the remakes. So I strongly recommend you try those two. Those were good. Then at the same time, we played a brand new game that came out that was very unique. It's called Bye Sweet Carole. That one was a hand-drawn animated side-scroller game that was inspired quite heavily from Disney animations and hand-drawn animations, I should say. And it was probably one of the best indie games we played all year. I think that The story could have been a little bit more fleshed out if they had more time, probably. The platforming was okay. I think that the level design was good. It was just, it was clearly indie. It was very, very clearly an indie game. But Bye Sweet Carole basically takes place on this girl whose best friend Carol has gone missing in an orphanage and a boarding school for, women growing up, you should say, in a suffrage movement. So it's very much related to, like, how women are not independent, that they need a man to survive. It's a man's world kind of thing. And it's basically about this girl who, I forget her name. The main character is not Carol. It's somebody else. I forget what her name is. But she is basically challenging the women's suffrage, essentially, as in, like, she is an advocate for it. She is, trying to make women more independent. And, she does it in a way that's really cool. She is a teenager who has ADHD, very clearly. And she just goes into her head instead, and she sees everything in the world from the scope of her own perspective. She imagines, like, bunnies. She imagines, like, lots of different things. She imagines, like, her companion, which is this guy whose head comes off, and you can be this little guy. And it's really cool. It's just a very cool idea. They tell the story in a really cool way. I'm not going to spoil everything for you, but essentially it's an incredible adventure that took 2 streams that I really, really enjoyed. I thought that Bye Sweet Carole was incredible, and I hope that studio does more stuff, especially in the hand-drawn animation. I think that it was great. And then as part of Spooktober, we also did the casting of Frank Stone as well. God, that game was weird. I don't know how I feel about the casting of Frank Stone. I think that Supermassive Games, did a big miss with that one. I think that it was supposed to be like, oh, look, we're collaborating with DVD, and, like, we're going to see a lot of DVD references with the Entity and Frank Stone and, like, all this stuff. But, the references and the sound effects and everything that was connecting it to the world of Dead by Daylight is the thing that made it great. But truthfully, the story was... it was just terrible. I don't really think that the story was very good. I thought the first half of the game was incredibly boring. Nothing really happened. And then we finally went to, we finally started getting some reveals, and things started happening, and it started amping up, and then it was over. It was like, it just wasn't my favorite game this year. It really wasn't. And this didn't come out this year, so obviously I'm not going to touch too much on it, but casting of Frank Stone was what we played, and it was a lot of fun. And then, of course, I finally finished, at the end of the year, I finally finished Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which, spoiler alert, one game of the year. Shocked. I know, everyone's so shocked that Clair Obscur won. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 takes place in a universe that is so unique that it's never been done before. There were so many things about Clair Obscur that had never been done before. And it shook the industry because only 30 people developed this game over the course of a couple of years in Unreal Engine 5. And it just goes to show you that there is now a new standard for what a small team can do. There really is. It just, everything came together. And at the same time, the composer who did the music was an incredible job. The music was incredible. The gameplay was incredible. The art style was incredible. The story was incredible. Just everything about it was so unbelievably well curated. That team is so talented. And I hope they stay small, because that's what I think what made it so good, was that there weren't too many cooks in the kitchen. There was just enough for it to cook correctly, and it was just amazing. I really strongly recommend Clair Obscur Expedition 33 to anybody who likes turn-based RPG games. The narrative was so interesting. Like, you're in Paris, and it's a very different Paris. The world is completely manipulated around itself, and there's this big person in the back called the Paintress who waves a number, and it counts down from a certain number all the way down, and we are now on number 33, and then everyone who's associated with the number 34 completely disappears from existence, and you have to save the world. But there's a plot twist at the end that's really crazy, and I would strongly recommend this game to anybody. It's amazing. Amazing. So cool. So cool. Strongly recommend Expedition 33 to anybody in the gaming universe. All right, and then we had Obsidian release another big game this year called Outer Worlds 2. You've probably heard of Outer Worlds. Outer Worlds 2 is incredible. It is a expansion on the original game, and it basically comes after that. Now, I don't exactly know what the canon ending of Outer Worlds 1 was, but it basically, Auntie Cleo and Moon Man from Spacer's Choice have merged together to a new giant mega corporation called Auntie's Choice. And essentially, it's because Spacer's Choice tried to take over Auntie Cleo's company and completely failed. And when we're saying take over, we literally mean like giant army invasion kind of thing going on. And it didn't work, so Auntie Cleo took over Spacer's Choice, bought Spacer's Choice, and formed something called Auntie's Choice, which is essentially the combination of the two. Now, there is a very interesting moment where you have to choose whether or not to kill Auntie Cleo and kill Spacer's Choice. It's very interesting. I strongly recommend you all try it. I'm gonna play it again. I've played it one time now, but if I play it again, there's gonna be another ending that I'm gonna do a bunch of things that I didn't do in this first playthrough. But essentially, I cannot wait to see how this develops into the next game. I think that this game was really, really well done, but it's still a small team, right? And I think that, you know, The Outer Worlds 3 could be the best game ever in the series, because they can just take the mistakes from this game and the last game and really improve the third one. But anyway, I think that, you know, Outer Worlds 2 is hysterical. It's fantastic. It's great combat. The graphics are amazing. And on top of that, it has just got a fantastic story. It's got fantastic RPG elements. It does a couple of things different from the first game. A lot of things from the first game are polished in the second game. And it's just amazing. I strongly recommend it to anyone who likes space games, RPG games, that kind of stuff. So that's another great one as well. All right, so that is all of the major titles that we played this year that were recent. I would like to give some honorable mentions, though, of some great games that happened this year, that and games that didn't happen this year that I played. I played SOMA with Mikey, and SOMA was an incredible experience. I've already played that game on this channel once, but I played it the second time, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But SOMA, as always, is still the pinnacle, in my opinion, of horror. I think that it's one of the best horror games ever made, and I think that you all should go play it. We also did Layers of Fear 2023 Remake with Mikey as well, and that was a lot of fun. I'm not going to, again, go into too much detail because Layers of Fear, their original game was great, and then the remake was great, so, you know, we've done so many Layers of Fear content on this channel. Just go watch it. It's great. Or go play it. It's fantastic. Then some other honorable mentions I did this year. I pulled out my Switch 1 and played Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury, and that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that one. It's a Mario platforming game. An open world Super Mario game is always really good. And it got a Switch 2 upgrade, so I might try that next time. I don't know. I also want to mention as well, we did do a Bloodborne playthrough as well. That is still, in my opinion, one of the best Dark Souls, From Souls games ever. It's one of my favorites. It's the easiest one to get into for those of you who are new to the From Souls genre, so I strongly recommend it. It's a lot more forgiving than other games, but it's still great because the DLC is so tough. So I strongly recommend that one. We've done so much Bloodborne content on this channel. I'm not even going to bother explaining it. Just go play it and go look at the videos if you want to. They're a lot of fun. I also want to give a shout out to a game I didn't finish, and a game I don't think I will finish, Pokémon Z-A. Yeah, I was very excited for Pokémon Z-A when I saw the trailers. It is a Legends game, so it's a spin-off game, but oh god, it was terrible. It was so boring. There's no voice acting. The graphics look horrible compared to today's games, and it just wasn't it. I don't recommend it at all to anybody. We also played another game that I strongly recommend if you have a MetaQuest, Half-Life Alyx. I finally got around to playing that one. That came out a couple of years ago, and Half-Life Alyx is one of the most detailed VR games I've ever experienced. It's as close as we're going to get to a Half-Life 3, I think, at the moment. But there is a cliffhanger in the end of the game that does suggest that we are getting another one someday. So I would love to see Half-Life 3 in VR. I think that we are probably going to see a Half-Life 3, if we ever do, as a regular PC game. But then they might come out with a VR mode or something like that. Valve does seem to be doubling down on their VR content because of the Valve, the Steam frame, as well as the, what is it called? Is it called the Steam frame? Yeah, it's called the Steam frame. I just wanted to make sure. Because of the Steam machine coming out next year and the Steam controller and everything like that. I mean, you know, we obviously have the Valve Index headset, and that was good, but it just was really bulky. It was really heavy, and it was like huge. It looked like a giant TV on your head. The Steam frame is much lighter. It's very difficult, in my opinion, though, to compete these days with the MetaQuest 3. I think the MetaQuest 3 kind of set a new standard for VR and what goes on your head. It's very light. If you get the right accessories for it, it's very light, it's very comfortable, and you know, do not use the original strap, by the way, that comes with the MetaQuest 3 if you get it for Christmas this year. Immediately buy something else. The MetaQuest 3 strap that it comes with is what my friend Spencer calls a torture device. It is like this thing that straps to the back of your head and pushes in forward, and it's like it's clasping onto your head. It's terrible. I strongly recommend basically one that kind of turns and latches onto your head, but then kind of like hangs on the back, so to speak. So feel free to like try something else, but the MetaQuest has kind of created a new standard, so it's going to be very tough for Valve, even Valve, to compete with it. But I guess it's a good alternative if you think that Meta's tracking you, which they are, and if you think that, you know, you don't trust Meta with your data or your information or anything like that, Steam Frame is a good alternative. So definitely feel free to do that. I mean, Steam Frame also connects to your regular PC if you don't have a Steam machine. So, you know, feel free to do whatever you want with it. I'm just looking at the list of stuff here really quick right now as well. I never got around to playing it, but Silent Hill F is another one I want to give a shout out to. Silent Hill F looks incredible. I've seen a couple of people play through some of it. Not all of it, because I don't want to spoil it, but it looks amazing. It's definitely given that, between that and Silent Hill 2's remake, it's definitely given new life to this franchise, which it's needed desperately. So I definitely am very excited to see, after Silent Hill F, what comes next. It's very possible that we could see the original Silent Hill remake come from Blooper Team. That, I think, is already in the works right now. So definitely looking forward to that. But the realism here is that, you know, this paves the way for future titles, you know, in the Silent Hill franchise, and it's still popular. You know, Silent Hill 2 Remake was one of the most popular, best-selling horror remakes of all time, so I strongly recommend it. I recommend Silent Hill F as well. From what I've played, it looks really fun. I think I'm definitely going to play it next year. Another honorable mention I'd like to give out here is Blue Prince as well. I never played it, but I did see a bunch of people try it on Twitch, and I saw Markiplier did a video on it, and it's very interesting. But it's basically a very interesting concept. I can see why it got so popular, especially because it's like, well, you know, like, what room comes next, and what do I need to place in this room? What do I need to grab? that kind of thing. So I am definitely looking forward to maybe trying Blueprints next year. I just never got around to it this year. Another big game that came out this year that everyone seems to love is Dispatch. I did see Jacksepticeye play a little bit because I know he voices a character in the game. But I don't know if I'll be playing Dispatch, truthfully. It just doesn't look like my kind of game. It's basically a giant interactive movie, which, to be fair, so is Until Dawn and all those supermassive games that we play all the time. But this one's different. I mean, that one is horror, and anything could happen to those characters, you're right? Whereas Dispatch is a big superhero genre game in the anime style, and I just don't know. There's just something about Dispatch that just doesn't look interesting at all to me, and I don't know what it is. I think it has to do with the fact that it's superheroes. I'm really, really tired of the superhero genre between Marvel and Spider-Man and, you know, all of the Marvel games that have come out, and it's just not fun anymore. And I just wish I didn't feel that way, but it isn't. So I don't think I will be playing that one at all. And I'm sorry to say that, because it really does look like a very interesting game, great narrative, but it's just not something I want to play. Then we have Chronos: The New Dawn I want to give a shout out to. I'm definitely going to play that next year on PC. I heard that it was one of the best games Blooper has ever made, and I'm very excited to try it because it's a new IP from them, and they are really polishing their stuff lately. So, you know, between the Medium and between Silent Hill 2 and stuff like that, and the Layers of Fear remake was polished too. I just think that Blooper Team is really establishing themselves as a very, very prominent horror dev in this community. So I'm very excited to play it. I think that it's going to be good. I think Chronos: The New Dawn will be a lot of fun. I also want to give a shout out as well to Donkey Kong Bonanza. I had heard... Oh, I almost forgot. Okay, I have to do another one after this too. Donkey Kong Bonanza is a very interesting looking game. I'm obviously not really a huge Nintendo fan. I do have the Nintendo Switch too. I'm starting to play that console more. I'm trying to like find games that are worth it on there that I missed from the Switch 1. The Switch 1 was just... I don't know what it was about it that I just didn't like the Switch 1. I think it was the graphical capability was terrible on that console. So I just don't think that I will be playing much Switch 1 content, but I do think that Switch 2 with Switch 1 content will be a better, more pleasant experience for me. But at the same time, you know, I did want to just give out a shout out to Donkey Kong Bonanza, which won Best Family Game. I think that that's a great game to try out. I saw, again, one person play the beginning of it, and I thought it was really cool. And I think that I will have a lot of fun with that if I do play it in 2025, because I know it's by the same team that made Super Mario Odyssey, which is one of my favorite Mario games ever. So I'm really excited to play that one. I also want to give a shout out to Mario Kart World. I did play a little bit of that when the Switch came out. It didn't hit me the same way Mario Kart 8 did for some reason. I think Mario Kart World just feels very empty at the moment, which is ironic considering it's the biggest game they've ever made. But I think truthfully, you know, Mario Kart World needs to be expanded on the same way Mario Kart 8 did, and I think that Nintendo plans on doing that. I can see Mario Kart World existing for the entire Switch 2's lifetime, and I don't think that they need to ever really make another Mario Kart game again after this one, until the next console comes out. I also want to give a shout out as well to Metroid Prime 4, and I think I'm going to end the video with this one, because Metroid Prime 4 is something I'm playing right now, and it's amazing. It's genuinely incredible. We've waited so long for a Metroid game. For those of you who do not know, Metroid Prime 3 came out in 2007, and we've been waiting this long for another Metroid game. And I think that they've let this one cook so much that it's just, it was time. So, you know, having it out on the Switch 2 as well with the incredible graphics, amazing frame rate, it's just, it doesn't feel like a Nintendo game. It really doesn't. It's the best looking Nintendo game I think they've ever put out. and it's genuinely amazing. I strongly recommend Metroid to anybody. This is also a great game to experience if you have never experienced a Metroid game. It's great for new players as well. You don't need to know any of the previous Metroid games. All the plots are the same anyway for them. You know, Samus starts with a bunch of different things in her suit and tons of abilities. You go and you answer a distress call. Something happens where you lose all your powers and you have to go through the entire game regaining them again. And eventually you'll fight the final boss with all of the things you've learned over the course of the rest of the game. It's a format that Nintendo does quite often. However, this one has always worked really well, and this one will always work, especially for a Metroid game. But I strongly recommend Metroid Prime 4. I'm really hoping that this is not the last Metroid game that they make. I hope that they make another one, but, you know, this is just one of those games where it's like, you know, just so good, and I strongly recommend anybody who likes Metroid games. All right, folks, that's it for me. That is going to be everything that I played this year and all the honorable mentions. There's plenty of games that I did not mention in this video, like Hollow Knight Silk Song and Death Stranding 2 and, you know, Dying Light the Beast and, you know, just like a bunch of different ones that I didn't cover. But those are ones that didn't really get my attention. I didn't like Death Stranding 1. I am not a big fan of Hollow Knight. I know that I'm in the minority with that one. I know a lot of people love Hollow Knight, but it's just not my kind of thing. And then Elden Ring Night Rain is another one that a lot of people liked, but I absolutely hated. I couldn't stand it. Then there's also Doom the Dark Ages, Arc Raiders, you know, a bunch of different things that are just out there that I never got around to trying. This is obviously not going to be a video with every single game that came out this year, but all the ones that spoke to me personally. And truthfully, you know, it's incredible. 2025 was an unbelievable year for gaming. It really was. It was an amazing amount of releases, some incredible titles, and 2026 looks to be like it's even going to go even harder. I mean, we have tons of games coming out in 2026. We've got Grand Theft Auto 6, hopefully. We've got Resident Evil Requiem. We've got 007 First Light. We've got the new Fable remake coming out, hopefully. We have a new Halo campaign Evolved remake coming out. We have Forza Horizon 6, hopefully. God, Subnautica 2. Like, I could just keep going and going and going. And let's hope that some of these games actually come out this year, coming up. But in the meantime, we'll be playing a lot of them. I'm going to go back to streaming probably in January. There's a couple of games I want to start with it from this year that I didn't get to play, and we're going to finish off 2025 at the beginning of 2026. And basically, I'm gonna count them into the 2026 lineup, and I'm talking about ones that came out like this month. Like, I'm not talking about like we're gonna play a game from June that's gonna count toward the games of next year. Like, no. I'm gonna count towards this one. But anyway, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's my end of the year recap. I'm gonna post this toward the end of December, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.